Hello viewers, welcome back to the channel. Hope you all are staying safe and healthy at home. Now in today's video lecture, I will be discussing about chapter 17, which is breathing and exchange of gases from human physiology. Please watch till end and do like, share and subscribe to the channel, and also follow my other social media links are in the description box. So let's get started. Now here we will try to understand the basic and a very important difference between breathing and respiration. So breathing is basically a physical process where inspiration and expirations are mechanical functions, and in inspiration there is an intake of oxygen, and during expiration we exhale out CO2. Now in case of respiration, it is basically a biochemical process where oxidation and reductions are chemical reactions that are occurring, and one of the example we can take of catabolic reactions of glucose molecule, where in the presence of oxygen it gets a breakdown into CO2, water, and amount of energy is released in the form of ATP and heat. So this type of reaction is also known as aerobic reaction because the oxygen is very much required here, and it is a essential source for conduction of respiration. So this is a basic difference between breathing and respiration. Now we will discuss about respiratory organ. In variety of organisms, categorizing them from lower organism to higher organism, the respiratory organs varies. For example, in case of sponges, ciliate platform, there is a simple diffusion occurring throughout the body where the passive movement is occurring with no energy. So that means that it does not require energy when the gaseous exchange are taking place from its higher to lower concentration. Next is earth form. So in case of earth form, basically they have a moist cutile layer or the slime mucus layer membrane. This membranous layer help in absorption of oxygen from its surrounding environment. Next we will talk about insect. Now in case of insect, they have tracheal tubes network along with the spiracles which are present on the lateral body surface of the insect, and through this the atmospheric gaseous exchange take place. Now in arthropoda, which are living in aquatic habitat, and in some molluscs, the respiration is known as branchial respiration, that is through gills as well. Now the gills in aquatic arthropoda which are seen in molluscs also. So these are known as vascularized structure. The respiration occurring through the gills in aquatic arthropoda and in molluscs, they are known as vascularized structures. In fish, they have gills which is covered with an operculum. Next is amphibian. Now amphibians are the organisms, for example frog. They can survive both on the water bodies and on the land surface. So on the land surface, the respiration is through lungs, which is also known as pulmonary respiration, and when they are in the water bodies, the respiration is known as cutaneous respiration. Now in cutaneous respiration, what happens? The respiration is through the skin surface, and the dissolved oxygen of water bodies are exchanged through its skin surface, and this cutaneous respiration is at the time of estivation and hibernation also. Next, in case of reptiles, birds and mammals, there are lungs, which is also known as pulmonary respiration. Now we will see about human respiratory system, which we have to discuss in this particular chapter. In human respiratory system, we have a pair of external nostrils opening out of the upper lips. It leads to a nasal chamber through the nasal passage. The nasal chamber opens into the pharynx, a portion of which is a common passage for food and air. Now the pharynx opens through the larynx region into the trachea. Larynx is a cartilaginous box which helps in the sound production, and though we call it sound box. Now during swallowing, glottis prevent the entry of food into the larynx. Trachea is a straight tube extending up to the mid-thoracic cavity, which divides at the level of fifth thoracic vertebra into the right and left primary bronchi. Now each bronchi undergo repeated division to form a secondary and tertiary bronchi and bronchioles, ending up in very thin terminal bronchioles. The trachea, primary, secondary and tertiary bronchi and the initial bronchioles are supported by incomplete cartilaginous ring. Now each terminal bronchi give rise to a number of very thin irregular walled and vascularized bag-like structures called alveoli. Now the things are same here about pharynx and digestive system as well, but here the focus is on the passage of air through the respiratory tract, which are different from digestive tract. Now here what we have to remember is a fifth thoracic vertebra. Now fifth thoracic vertebra is the position where the two left and right bronchi are getting divided. Now in total the thoracic vertebra are 12 in numbers, and from fifth thoracic vertebra it is getting divided. So this point is very important to remember. Now next what we have to see here, that trachea further leads through primary, secondary and tertiary bronchi. Now these layers which we can see that they have the segments, and we have a primary, secondary and tertiary bronchi. So these are the branches of bronchi which we had divided into three different parts as further it is moving into the lungs, or the initial bronchioles are the smallest. These are the tiniest or the smallest airways that leads to the alveoli. Now alveoli is a vascularized bag-like structure, and we can see that from this larynx position, this trachea, from this trachea till this tertiary bronchi, we can say, and till initial bronchioles, they are covered with a cartilaginous ring. Now this cartilaginous ring which we can see over the trachea and here also, so they are a incomplete circle and they are basically of C shaped, letter alphabet C shaped. Now next we can see that all these branching network of bronchi, bronchioles. So branching network of bronchi includes primary, secondary and tertiary bronchi. Next bronchioles, they are the tiniest airways which we had seen. Alveoli, they are the vascularized bag-like structure, and all these three comprises the lungs. Now we have two lungs which are covered by a double layer pleura. Now pleura is the membrane which is of double layer. One, the outer layer is towards the thoracic lining and the inner layer of pleura is towards the lungs. Now what basically this pleura layer does, it reduces friction and shocks at the lung surface, and its main composition is lymphocytes. So the parts starting with the external nostrils up to the terminal bronchioles constitute the conducting part, whereas the alveoli and their ducts form the respiratory and exchange part of the respiratory system. The conducting part transports the atmospheric air to the alveoli. It clears it from foreign particles, humidifies it, and also brings the air to the temperature. So it maintains the temperature of the respired air or inspired air, and it balances the temperature of the atmospheric air with the body temperature, and it also humidifies it, and it eliminates the foreign particles which are other than the oxygen. So basically it filtrates the oxygen, and exchange part is the site of actual diffusion of oxygen and CO2 between blood and atmospheric air. Now the lungs are situated in the thoracic cavity or thoracic chamber. So this part is very important because it is telling about the position of lung from where it is all covered into a airtight chamber. It forms a airtight chamber. So thoracic chamber is formed dorsally by the vertebral column, ventrally by the sternum. Sternum is basically a chest bone or breastbone, we can also say it. Laterally by the ribs, and on the lower side by a dome-shaped diaphragm. The anatomical setup of lung thorax is such that any change in the volume of the thoracic cavity will be reflected. So it is packed in a tight chamber, so any changes it will be reflected in the lungs. cavity. Such an arrangement is essential for breathing as we cannot directly alter the pulmonary volume. So it is a very systematic process and it cannot be altered anyway, and if there will be any changes it will be reflected in the lungs cavity. So till now we are able to understand that respiration is a process where oxygen transportation, diffusion, utilization through blood and tissues are taking place and releasing out the CO2. So this is the main steps which are involved in respiration. So now in this particular part I'm going to discuss about mechanism of breathing. So first I will discuss about inspiration, that what are the things that will happen during inspiration. So when inspiration will occur, then the atmospheric air is drawn in. So basically when we inspire, the intake of atmospheric air, we do intake of oxygen or from the atmosphere. Now what will happen here, the pressure within the lungs, which is intrapulmonary pressure, it get less than the atmospheric pressure. Now this is known as negative pressure. Now basically what happens here, that the contraction of the diaphragm increases the volume of thoracic chamber in anterior posterior axis. Remember these positions which are very important. Now secondly, what will happen here, now the contraction of external internal costal muscles lift up the ribs. Now these are the things which will happen when we are inspiring air or atmospheric air. So first is at contraction of diaphragm, which will increase the volume of thoracic chamber in anterior posterior axis. The contraction of external intercostal muscles, it will lift up the ribs, sternum, causing increase in volume of thoracic chamber in dorsal ventral axis. Now sternum will increase the volume of thoracic chamber in dorsal ventral axis. Increase in thoracic volume causes increase in pulmonary volume. Now what is happening here, basically when there will be an increase in thoracic volume, that means it is causing a increase in pulmonary volume. So the volume of pulmonary or lung cavity will increase. Now further what will happen, the increase in pulmonary volume will decrease intrapulmonary pressure, which will be now less than the atmospheric pressure. So what is happening here, when the volume is rising up, the pulmonary pressures are getting less, and decreased intrapulmonary pressure forces air from outside to move into the lungs. So when there will be an increase in pulmonary volume, there will be a decrease in pulmonary pressure, which will be less than the atmospheric pressure. Now what will happen, the decreased intrapulmonary pressure, this decreased pressure on intrapulmonary, it will force air from outside, to move into the lungs. So from the atmosphere to put that air into the lung, the decreased pulmonary pressure will force the air. Now we will see about expiration. So these are the things which will happen in inspiration. Now I will talk about expiration, when we will exhale out the CO2. So basically what will happen here, the first thing which will happen here, that alveolar air is released. Now with the released alveolar air, the cases will be reversed here, and now intrapulmonary pressure is higher than the atmospheric air pressure. Now as in case of inspiration, we had seen the pressure was less and the volume was more. Here the things will be reversed. Here the pressure will get increased and the volume will get released. So in case of inspiration, basically it was happening, the contraction was happening, and in case of expiration it is relaxation. So with the relaxation, there is an increase in intrapulmonary pressure to slightly above atmospheric pressure. and it will cause the expulsion of air from lungs. So these are the two things that will happen during mechanism of breathing, and we can say that in a human being or a healthy human being, if we can breathe 12 to 16 times per minute. The volume of air involved in breathing movement can be estimated by using a spirometer, which helps in clinical assessment of pulmonary functions. So we can see here the two diagrams which tells about the inspiration and expiration. We can see in case of inspiration, the contraction is happening and the volumes are getting increased. The diaphragm, we can see that it is getting contracted, the ribs and sternum are getting raised, and we are expelling out the air. The diaphragm is getting relaxed and the volume is getting decreased. Now this mechanism of breathing is related with the Boyle's law. Now actually Boyle's law states that at a constant temperature the pressure is inversely proportional to the volume. So same concept is applied over here in the breathing mechanism. So you have to remember this, that pressure is inversely proportional to the volume in case of inspiration and expiration. So in an inspiration, what is happening? The volumes are getting decreased, the pressures are getting decreased and the volumes are increased in inspiration, and in expiration the volumes are getting decreased when the pressures are increasing. So it is inverse relation, similar to the concept of Boyle's law. Now I will be discussing about respiratory volume and capacity. So these terminologies are very important, and I will be doing a separate video on tricks at how you can learn these terminologies. Now tidal volume is a normal respiration, and here it gives an idea about volume of air inspired or expired during respiration, and approx 500 ml a healthy man can inspire or expire approximately 6000 to 800 ml of air per minute. So basically this data is when we had divided with 12 or 16. If you will divide this 500 ml into 12, you will get 6000. So 12 we are multiplying it with 12 because we can see here that human breathe is 12 to 16 times per minute. Now next is inspiratory reserve volume. So inspiratory reserve volume is the additional volume of air a person can inspire by forcible inspiration. So forcible inspiration is the amount of air which we can intake other than TV. So that we call it IRV, that is inspiratory reserve volume, and this is average around 2500 ml to 3000 ml. Next is expiratory. Similarly as in case of inspiratory, similarly here it is expiratory reserve volume. So it is an additional volume of air that we can expire or exhale, and this average is around 1000 to 1100 ml. Next is residual volume. So residual volume is basically the remaining volume of air after the forcible expiration. So even after the forcible expiration, there is some amount of air which is present inside the lungs. So this is known as residual volume. Now the average volume is 1100 ml to 1200 ml. By adding up a few respiratory volume described above, one can derive various pulmonary capacities which can be used in clinical diagnosis. So above all data which we had seen till now, it can be used to diagnose the respiratory illness, or to diagnose any respiratory mishappening can be diagnosed by getting the reading of all these things. Next is inspiratory capacity, which is also known as IC. Now it is a total volume of air a person can inspire after the normal expiration. So after normal expiration and the air which we can inspire. This includes tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume. So inspiratory reserve volume is a forced inspiration which we are doing after the normal expiration. So after normal expiration, we are doing a uh, normal respiration process, and along with that, when we are increasing the inspiratory capacity, to increase the inspiratory capacity, we are inhaling more air with a forcible inspiration. So we calculated with TV plus IRV. Next is expiratory capacity. Now it is a total volume of air a person can expire after a normal inspiration. So after normal inspiration, the total volume of air that can be expired, this includes the tidal volume and expiratory reserve volume. So forcible inspiration and normal inspiration, sorry, forcible inspiration, expiration, forcible expiration and normal expiration or normal respiration, and forcible inspiration plus normal respiration. Next is functional residual capacity. So basically in this case, the volume of air that will remain in the lung after the normal expiration, this includes ERV plus RV. So ERV and RV, it tells about that the air that will remain in the lungs even after the normal expiration. Even after the normal expiration, the remaining air, which will be a sum of ERV, expiration, forcible expiration, and residual volume, which is air left even after forcible expiration. Next is a vital capacity. So vital capacity tells about the maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after the forced expiration. So after forced expiration, when we are breathing in and with the maximum volume of air we are intaking, it includes ERV, TV and IRV, or the maximum volume of air a person can breathe out after the forced inspiration. Now next is about total lung capacity. Now total lung capacity is basically the air which can be remained in the lungs or accommodated in the lungs at the end of the forced inspiration. This includes residual volume, expiration reserve volume, tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume, or vital capacity plus reserve residual volume. So vital capacity is basically the maximum volume a person can breathe in after the forced expiration, including residual volume, which is the remaining volume of air within the lungs. So this is a very important part of this chapter, and these terminologies and their meanings are very important, and I will be giving a video on tricks to learn these terminologies. Now exchange of gases and transportation of gases I had given in my previous video. The link will be shared in the description box. Please do watch it. We will see that how the regulation of respiration occurs. So this is basically maintained by the neural system, and this how it is done we are going to see in this part. So human beings have a significant ability to maintain and moderate the respiratory rhythm to suit the demand of the body tissues. Now this is done by the neural system, a specialized center present in the medullary region of the brain called respiratory rhythm center is primarily responsible for this regulation. Another center present in the pons region of the brain called pneumotaxy. Now these centers can moderate the functions of the respiratory rhythm center. Neural signals from the center can reduce the duration of inspiration, and thereby it can alter the respiratory rates. Now the chemosensitive area situated adjacent to the rhythmic center, which is highly sensitive to CO2 and hydrogen ion. An increase in these substances can activate this center, which in turn can signal the rhythm center to make necessary adjustment in the respiratory process, by which these substances can be eliminated. Now respiratory associated aortic arc and carotid artery also can recognize changes in CO2 and H plus concentration and send necessary signal to the rhythm center for remedial actions. The role of oxygen in the regulation of respiratory rhythm is quite insignificant. Now, in the regulation of respiration, basically what is happening, there is a medullary rhythmic center which controls the rhythm of respiration, that is contraction and relaxation. Now these medullary rhythmic centers, these are present in the medulla oblongata, and pneumotaxic center are helping in switching off inspiratory neurons, and along with the anesthetic center. So both of these things are present in the brain stem, or we can also call it pons, brain pons. And what anesthetic center is doing, it prevents the switching of inspiratory neurons. So these are the parts which are helping in regulation of respiration. And chemosensitive area, they are highly sensitive to carbon dioxide. So basically what will happen here, if CO2 concentration will increase in the artery, so the concentration of CO2 will increase in cerebrospinal fluid as well, because the flow of CO2 is down the gradient. So from artery towards the cerebrospinal, it will move down the gradient, and pH will also decrease. So when there will be an increase in CO2, the pH will decrease. It is becoming acidic. Now this will cause the increase in breathing. So at this condition, the role of oxygen in regulating respiratory rhythm is very insignificant. So now next we will discuss about disorders of respiratory system. So asthma, emphysema. So first we will see about asthma. So it is a difficulty in breathing causing wheezing due to the inflammation of bronchi and bronchioles. Emphysema is basically a chronic disorder in which the alveolar walls are damaged, due to which respiratory surface is decreased. One of the major cause of this is cigarette smoking. Next is occasional respiratory disorder. So in certain industries, especially those involving grinding or stone breaking, so much dust is produced that the defense mechanism of the body cannot fully cope with the situation. Long exposure can give rise to inflammation leading to the fibrosis. Fibrosis is basically the proliferation of fibrous tissues, and thus it causes serious lung damage. And workers in such industries, they should wear protective masks. And one thing more I would like to add here, the disorder of lungs, which is pneumonia. And pneumonia, it is basically caused due to the infectious effect of virus or bacteria. So this is all from this video. I hope you are able to understand this whole chapter, which is breathing and exchange of gases. So if you like this video, please hit the like button, share and subscribe to the channel as well. And the part of exchange of gases and transportation of oxygen and transportation and exchange of gases, this graph part, this particular part I had uploaded earlier, and the link I will be sharing in the description box. So watch it from there. If you have any doubt, any query, write it in the comment section. Thank you for watching.